Hey, Donnie. Some pretty good defensemen that were on the waiver wire over the last 24 hours, and just wondering if how high the temptation level was to potentially put on a claim on any of them, and that not putting on a claim on them just speaks to the confidence level you have with the defenseman group going forward.
Well, we certainly looked at every player that is on the waiver wire and discussed at length with our pro staff as well as our coaches in the last 24 hours. Our group right now, knock on wood, is healthy and has made some nice progression. And we just felt that rather than muddy that water, if there wasn't a clear advantage to adding a player, again, if we weren't healthy, I probably would have been a little more aggressive in that sense, Joe, and possibly look for a little more depth. But where we sit right now, I think we're comfortable to move forward with our opening day roster and our first trip.
And just a little bit of a different subject. With Pasternak out the first couple of weeks, with the turnover and the young D that you have entering this season and anticipating growing pains there, is there any more of a bracing for the first couple of weeks might be tough, just given some of the mitigating factors you're dealing with, and just how important is it to stay consistent and not have a dip in a compacted season with a 56 game schedule?
Well, I think you're spot on in all those points, Joe, and the fact that you can't afford to go on a real dip and not get out of the gate. If you're chasing throughout the course of the year, and there are going to be some challenges thrown our way. Whether COVID rears its head at some point in time, I think we have a really strong goaltender. I think our foundation of how we play, how we're expected to play, I think will help us get through some of those rough patches that are to be expected. And obviously it's player driven, so in the health of the players. Pasta being out, the power play has to adjust. Players will get some different opportunities. I think our forward group, top to bottom, is pretty deep. Certainly when Pasta gets back, we'll be better. And Marsh being 100% healthy will help us. But it's got to be spread around the scoring. Hopefully we had improved and looked for depth overall in our scoring, 5-on-5 in particular. Especially teams, it's got to be tweaked on both sides, power play and penalty kill. And we have some players that have to step into some roles that they haven't been in before. And that will be the challenge of the coaching staff and to smooth out those rough patches as we go.
Thanks, Donnie.
Thanks, Joe. We'll go next to Steve Conroy.
Hey, Don, how you doing?
Well, Steve, how are you?
Good. Obviously, there are challenges in the with the compacted training camp and the evaluation process. How liberally will you use guys in the taxi squad, whoever's on there, whether it's Vakanainen or whoever, to get them into games early on and continue that evaluation process?
Well, it's certainly unique for us this year on all fronts, where we had a compacted training camp. The coaches laid out what they wanted to accomplish in training camp, subject to the health and availability of the players as we went through it. Not having exhibition games is a significant disadvantage relative to previous years, and putting some of those players in those situations to see how they were going to react. The continuity of your group, I think we have the bulk of our team, but also, as you guys referenced, we have some integration of some players that haven't been with us. So those are some challenges. And how we utilize the taxi squad, how effectively we can do that, you have to have roster spots. Some teams have a cap dynamic, and we all face that same challenge of managing our cap effectively in a unique environment. This year is no different. We hope to be in a position that if the player is playing well through camp, but he's on the taxi squad, that we'd be able to put him in the lineup. But that might take some roster moves associated with that, what flexibility you have. In either clearing players through waivers to get them to the taxi squad, and or some of the young players that don't have to clear waivers. So there'll be some management associated for all the teams.
And what's Brad's status? I know he didn't practice yesterday.
Yeah, he'll be back on the ice tomorrow. Just took a couple of days and he's going through some soreness associated with his off season, and we're being cautious with Brad and his return to play. We always set a goal for him to be there at opening night. We still expect that to happen, but we have to react with how he's feeling.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go next to Emily Benjamin.
In that vein, we saw David Pastrnak back on the ice today. Where is his status, and do you have maybe an expectation for when he could be ready?
No, I know that Bruce alluded that he might be ahead of schedule. We don't pick any one particular day that we've circled on the calendar, and allow him to go through his progressions with our training staff and our entire medical group, strength and conditioning side of it, and find out where he's at and continue to increase his loads overall as he goes through. You saw him with a bunch of players today and integrating into some of those situations, which is really his first day. And he'll continue to do that as he goes along while we're on the road. Unfortunately, he won't be with us on the road to do some of those battle situations, and we don't have extra players around to be able to facilitate that. But we expect him to fully integrate into practice upon our return, and then we'll get a much better indication on ways to sort of circling a date sometime in February.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Emily. We'll go next to Fluto Shinzawa.
Don, you've had a chance now to see these Ds jump up and join the rush, be part of that second wave. How do you think that will ultimately express itself in the 5-on-5 offense when the season starts?
We've seen pockets where we've really liked what we've seen from some of the younger guys. I think Backanainen's been a guy that's, as Butch described it, kind of ghosted into some plays to hide, but is using skating effectively and be on the secondary support in some offensive situations. Laboral's done it a little bit more. Losey was sort of forcing it early on in camp. In the last few days, he's really settled in to be more of a complement, the guy that we're looking to offset, in playing with Charlie or wherever he plays in the lineup. We're going to try and do it, as an entire group. I think we have to be more effective in those roles as well as on the offensive blue line. Our puck play hopefully will be clean to allow us to get into transition and get into our forwards group and be I don't know if we have a lot of guys. I mean, Charlie obviously goes up to lead the rush at times, and Grizzy certainly looked confident to do some of that stuff. Brandon's been somebody has been inclined to. At times his puck skills have not caught up to his feet. But overall, I think our group, with the mobility that they have, will continue to hopefully seek out and search those pockets of opportunity, continue to support the rush, and be more involved overall.
Go next to Kevin Dupont.
Thanks, Don. A Willie question and then a roster question, if I could. On Willie, I know this season's not going to be ideal in probably in any manner, but ideally when you retire a number, you've got people in the building. I have to believe that was part of your calculation, whether to do it now, whether to wait. Can you just give us an idea what you're going through there?
Yeah, I mean, ideally you want to be shaking people's hand, Kevin, in situations like this, right, and really paying tribute, and rightfully so, to Willie. It won't, hopefully it doesn't diminish the overall effect of what Willie going into the Raptors and retiring his number and what he's meant to the game and to the Boston Bruins. I really don't want to downplay that in any regard, regardless of the pandemic that is ongoing. As an organization, the legacy of the Boston Bruins, I think that we need to pay tribute in the best fashion we possibly can in these times, and thank Willie overall for his contributions to our organization, but really to the entire National Hockey League.
Okay, thank you. And on the roster, excuse my ignorance here if I don't quite understand the mathematics, but Bruce was saying a day or two ago that you'll probably do 23-6. Is that the right number within there? And given where you've got more questions on D, would you be more skewed toward defensemen on that taxi squad?
Well, we're allowed 23-6 is what it's probably referring to, is what I've talked about. You don't have to have 23-6. Some teams will not be able to put a 23-man roster out there. They'll have to be at 20, and we'll put you somewhere in between, to provide some flexibility and some movement between the taxi squad and between our roster. What our roster, tonight's deadline gives you a snapshot of what the roster and the players that will be available for us. You saw the waiver situation. You get players either through and onto your taxi squad or onto your roster for that matter. We're likely to be in that ballpark of somewhere in the 27, 28 players in carrying, and obviously one of them has to be a goaltender.
Yeah, and more skewed toward D there because of the questions?
No, overall, I think we have, we could be anywhere from 8 to 10 guys that we carry on the taxi squad to start out, and combine with our roster.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dupes. We'll take our final question from Joe McDonald.
Hey, Donnie. Kind of getting back to the retired numbers. You, during your career as a player and in management with the Bruins, you've witnessed a few of these. Overall, what does it mean that, to see those numbers go up to the rafters, and after Willie, I'm sure in the near future there's going to be at least 2 more guys coming. So, just overall, what does it mean to you to be a part of what this organization has done in that sense?
Well, you're right, Joe. I've been very fortunate to be around when several players, Cam and Raymond and Taz and Nifty and now Willie are going to the Raptors to be amongst the other players that have a rightful place there. And when you're talking about an original 6 franchise with the history and that we have, that's a pretty unique situation to be part of and to witness and to be able to really. I played with them. I coached. Some of those guys coached me. In Taz's case, Rick's been back around the organization. To me, it's just a thrill. It's a thrill to be a part of the history of the organization in that right, and to actually interact and to learn and to be considered friends with every one of those players and those people and what they've done for the organization and league wide. And they deserve that rightful place in the mark that they've made in the Boston Bruins in the National Hockey League, and it's a privilege to be part of them. And you're right, we have a few players that will probably ascend in the same right.